Welcome everyone. I'm thrilled you're here today to invest 30 minutes into something that could profoundly change your business. Whether you run a store, cafe, or any location-based business, you know that success isn't always about working harder, it's about working smarter. After over 3 decades of running and turning around retail stores, I've discovered 3 key actions that consistently separate struggling businesses from thriving ones. And here's the kicker. It might not be what you think it is. In this short but impactful session, we're going to unpack what it truly takes to build a successful business. By the end of our time together, you'll have practical, actionable insights that you can implement right away to see significant shifts in your business performance. So let's dive in and explore these 3 game-changing actions that can transform your business from just surviving to truly thriving. Ready? Let's get started. Okay, so today what I'm going to teach you is how to build a successful team. Because the thing is, if you're thinking about opening a business and wanting to grow it and build a business that's successful, you cannot do it alone. You can try, but eventually you're going to have to work with other people, you're going to have to build a team. And predominantly, I work with small to mid-sized to large retailers. My background is 2.5 decades running retail stores. And so I've been teaching this for a very long time. But one of the things that you're going to have to really understand is you can't just do everything alone, right? You have to be able to hire a team and manage a team and get those team members to be able to, drive the business for you. Again, it's really hard if you're a lone wolf trying to do everything yourself. Trust me, I've tried and it just doesn't work. And usually when business owners call me, it's because they're really stressed out about the people thing. What do you want more of when you have a retail store or a cafe or a hospitality location-based business, right, where you're selling service or sales? You want more customers, right? How do you get more customers? Well, you can have really great product, you can have really great marketing, but at the end of the day, if you have a location-based business that has 2 front doors that you open to customers to walk in, you need people in that location to help your customers. Happy people in a business create happy customers, create more business, right? The myth that you think you can hire anybody and they're just going to walk in off the street is absolutely not true. You may get a few superstars, but very rare. So here's the thing, right? When you're a business owner, you are the person, right? You're the person in charge of your business, right? So you're driving all the dollars, right? And everything you think about, so your thoughts, everything that you say, your communication, everything that you do, right, is what fuels more dollars, right? That's you. You're the business owner, you're driving the sales, you're doing everything. However, now in this mix, you have customers, right, that are coming in, customers coming in, and they want to buy what you're selling, right? They want to buy what you're selling. Well, if there's only one of you, how do you help all of these customers? You can't. So you have to hire a team, right? So you have to hire mini yous, right? Mini yous, getting it so far? Mini yous, right? People like you, just like you, that are passionate about what they're thinking about, what they're saying to your customers, and what they're doing with your customers. Now, to get people to be able to replicate what you do and help your customers, right? Help your customers, you need to do, there's 3 steps that every leader needs to be able to do with people to be able to get them to replicate what you're doing, okay? The first thing is you need to be able to train them. You need to be able to train them, you need to be able to teach them exactly what you want to do with every single customer, whether that be product knowledge, whether that be how to say hello to a customer, whatever. The next thing is you need to be able to coach them. You need to be able to coach them on their performance and help them get better at what they do. And then the third thing that you need to do is you need to hold them accountable, okay? So you need to hold them accountable. All right, so 1, 2, 3. Why is this important? Because without being able to train people and then coach people and then hold your team accountable, you will end up being that lone one person doing everything yourself, stressed out because you don't have a team of people that are trained to help your customers, that you've coached to make sure that their performance is on track, and that you're holding them accountable. So the magic happens when you can get this right as a leader. Okay, here's where I see most leaders go wrong, okay? They think that training people is telling people, okay? That's what they think. They think that training people is telling people. Okay, training is not telling people. If you just tell people what to do all day, you will become exhausted and you will wonder why people are not doing what you're asking them to do eventually, right? Nobody wants to be just told what to do all day, and actually it's non-productive. They also think that coaching is communicating, just communication, okay? They think that coaching is communicating and by giving feedback. You know, again, they get stuck in the telling trap. So tell people what they're doing well, tell people what they're doing wrong, and tell people what they want them to do. Okay? So tell them what they're doing well, what they're doing wrong, and what they want them to do. Okay, so we go back to that telling, right? The problem with telling is it's a one-directional conversation. And if you've ever been in a conversation with anybody where they're just speaking at you and not listening to you and asking you questions, 9 times out of 10, if you think about any of these examples in the last 24 hours or the last 48 hours where you've met somebody, maybe you're walking down the street, maybe you're in a party, maybe you're in a retail store, maybe you were just hanging out with friends, whatever you were doing, somebody's talking at you, what do you do? Generally, you just start to switch off, become disengaged, and start thinking about what you've got to make for dinner or where you've got to take the kids tomorrow at 4 o'clock for a football practice, whatever it is. So that's the problem with telling, right? So, and then the last one, accountability. What most people think of accountability, they think about it as being a tough conversation. Sorry, my writing's not the best. They think about accountability as being a tough conversation, which usually makes people feel sad, bad, and we avoid them at all costs. Nobody likes having tough conversations, right? But I'm going to reframe accountability for you. Accountability is not a tough conversation, it's an honest, caring process or framework. There is 9 steps to this, that when you get this right, honest, caring process, you will get people doing anything for you. 10 times you'll be influencing people to do 10 times the work for you. And 9 times out of 10, if somebody's not doing the work, they're choosing to opt out, then they usually end up firing themselves. But there is 9 steps to holding somebody accountable, right? Let's go back to the beginning where we started. So training. We need to train our team, okay? So we need to train our team. We need to coach our team. And then we need to hold our team accountable. All right. So in training, there is 5 steps to training somebody well. In coaching, there are 4 steps to coaching somebody well. In an accountability, creating accountability, there is 9 steps. Now, this might seem like a lot. It's not a lot when you actually start practicing it every day and understand the frameworks, which is what I'm going to teach you. But when you understand what these frameworks are, and some of the skills overlap each other, you actually start getting the return on the return on compensation on all of your people. Now, what do I mean by return on compensation on all of your people? Most people ask me, April, training, investing in leadership development sounds really good, and, I know I need it, but, what's the ROI, right? Return on investment. You've probably heard this a lot. What's the ROI? We talk about it in marketing. We talk about how we spend money. Now, return on investment is better quantified when you're training people with return on compensation. Why does this matter? Because let's say you're paying your manager $50,000 a year, you're another supervisor $50,000 a year. This is a part-time salesperson, So you're now spending 50, 100, 150K, right, in salaries in your business. And what you really want is a return on your compensation that you're spending. We know that when people are not trained well, coached well, and held accountable, they're not motivated, they're not inspired to do a really good job. Your team is probably operating at, let's say, 50%, and I see this all the time, 50% of their capacity, which is driven by a lack of motivation and inspiration and skills. Okay? Skills. So what we want to do is we want to return on compensation. We want to increase our ROC and get this 150K, all these people working for us at not 50%, not even 100%. We want them working at 110% of your capacity. So you're getting a 10% return on the money that you're investing in these people, right? So how do you do that? I'm going to come back to where I started. They need to be trained, they need to be coached, and they need to be held accountable. 1, 2, 3. Okay? They need to be trained, they need to be coached, and they need to be held accountable. And now I want to break down for you what training looks like, what coaching looks like, and what accountability looks like. Now I can't go into all of this in detail in this video, because that would be a 3-hour class, and we do that when we do workshops. But for the essence of you being able to take something away today, before you decide to jump in and learn more in the community and join my community to basically help you get better at this, let's just break down the 9 steps of accountability, right? So step number 1, set clear expectations, okay? And ensure the expectations are understood. I'm going to underline understood, and I'm going to come back to this in a minute. Number 2, okay, this is step number 2. Step number 3, step number 1 is actually right people. So we're going to assume that you have the right people, right? Number 3 is share and provide consequences if the expectations are not met. Okay. Now, when I work with most leaders, consequences makes people feel really uncomfortable. But if we don't provide what the consequences are in advance, then 9 times out of 10, you're going to be frustrated because you're going to be constantly asking yourself, why aren't they getting it? And I don't know if you think about somebody on your team right now, or somebody that you've had on your team that you feel like you've told them 10 times to do the same thing, but they keep making the same mistake and they don't take ownership of what they're doing. It's probably because you've missed these 2 steps. These are the top 2 steps that most leaders miss. So let's just talk about setting clear expectations, right? To ensure that the expectations are understood. How do you do that? Well, I'm going to go back to the beginning. Training is not telling. One way, right? It's not telling. How do we make sure that people understand what's expected of them? We do this as a leader. We stop telling and we start asking. Okay? We start asking. Asking questions is your superpower for building a team, training a team, coaching a team, and holding a team accountable. Now, most leaders don't know how to ask questions, okay? So what you want to do is learn how to ask questions. Now, you only get answers to the questions you ask, so asking questions is really important. So when we're setting expectations in step number 1, what we want to do is share with our team exactly what we need them to do. And before we walk away, ask them what they heard us say. Ask them to walk you through, if they had to train another person on what you just asked them to do, how would they train them and how would they show them what to do? Now, there's some great things that happen when you actually start to implement this into your leadership. Yes, it takes some effort, and a lot of people say, April, I don't have time for all of that. Well, if you don't have time for it at the beginning, you're going to be paying at the back end and the end of it, right? Because if you put investment time in the beginning with your team by training them, coaching them, and holding them accountable like this, then you're going to see the rewards in the end. Because remember that circle at the beginning where you're in the middle of it and you're driving all these sales, but you have all these people that you need to make mini-me's? This is how you do it. So we want to make sure that we're asking them, we're telling them what we need them to do. Okay, number one, telling them what we need to do. Number two, we're asking to validate what that means to them. So simply, hey Sally, I need you to answer the phone within 15 seconds of ringing, say hello to every customer, let them know who you are, what you're here to do and help them with. That's telling. That's where most leaders stop. Training them and setting a clear expectation and ensuring that they understood it is then the next step would be, hey Sally, I want to ask you just to validate with me what you heard me say and what you're gonna do next, right? So then Sally's gonna share with you what she's gonna do, and in this moment, you're gonna be able to catch any gaps that you see in what you've asked them to do. Why is this good? Because it creates what I like to call the mirror effect. So you're here as the leader, as the boss, and your staff member's here. Your staff member is a reflection, so the reflection, this is the image of the manager, of your leadership, okay? So when you ask and validate what they understood and what it means, you're actually validating, was I clear with what I wanted? Am I supporting them in exactly what they need to do? So that they can reflect back to me what my expectations were of them before they went to do the task. This is really key. If you're a leader, you have to ask yourself every day, what's the reflection that my team is giving back to me so that I can change my image as a leader to my team and bring that back full circle. At the end of the day, your team is only a reflection of you and as good as what you are actually doing with them, okay? So that mirror effect, super important. All right, so once we've set the expectations, we've validated that they understood exactly what they needed to do, the third step in the 9 steps of accountability is having a conversation that shares the consequences should they choose to not meet the expectations set. Because if you were clear on what you expected and they validated back to you and you coached the gaps, now you know without shadow of a doubt that they are clear on what you need them to do. So the next step would be to say, hey, Sally, if you don't meet these expectations, the consequences of that could be that we don't make the sales today. Therefore, I can't give you hours to work for the rest of the week. It could be, if you don't get the packages out on time, our customers are not going to be happy. Consequences, they're probably not going to shop as regularly as they are. We're not providing great service. And so again, that's going to have a knock-on effect on how many hours I can give you to work here. When I was an assistant manager working at Banana Republic, wanting to get promoted, wanting to get to that next level, I'll never forget this. I had a store manager who said to me, April, if you don't do this specific task that's required of you, then when the promotion comes or the opportunity comes, I will not be recommending you to be promoted because you haven't corrected this issue that I have asked you to do. And I know that you know how to do it because you've literally validated back to me that you understand. That conversation was a 30-second conversation of sharing the consequences that I am choosing to accept because I made a decision that what she was asking me to do was not that important. It's like when you have kids, right? And you're like, don't put your hand on the stove because your hand's gonna get burnt. We have to have these conversations that share consequences. Another example of that was when I was a store manager. I had a regional director that visited my store once, and I know you've probably heard me say this story before, but I remember clearly him having a conversation with me about if I couldn't transfer ownership to the rest of my team and have them not call me when I was on a day off and take responsibility and make those decisions, then I would never be able to go beyond one store. And so that's where I started to figure all of this out. He was right, she was right. If I could not transfer ownership to a team and build that team and literally have these conversations that I'm talking to you about, then I would have never been able to pull myself out of the middle bit. And for most of my career, I was a store manager. But for the last 20% of my career, I became a senior vice president. Why was that? Because I figured out how to train a team, coach a team, and hold a team accountable with the 5 steps, the 4 steps, and the 9 steps that I teach in my workshops, right? And you can get access to this. If there's a link around this video, you'll be able to get access to this through the online courses where we teach, train, coach, and accountability, right? So that to be said, if you're struggling, like most small business owners, managers, and even executive, at actually transferring ownership and having your team work and get that 110% out of them, along with retaining your team and making sure that you have the best team ever, I can tell you it's one of those 3 things that you are probably missing. So let's get you going to where you need to go to get yourself out of every single part of your business and start to build a team around you, right? Of happy, excited, inspired people that can help your customers generate you lots of cash in your business, and you are like happy, jumping up and down. That's a bit of a stick man, but you get what I'm saying, right? And this really, it's not that complicated, guys, but it is a method, a framework, and it does require intention on your part as a leader. Because what John Maxwell says all the time, and as a John Maxwell coach, I will tell you that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. You influence your team every day on how they show up and perform for you with your customers and in your business. You do that. So remember, I want you to think about the mirror, right? Think about the reflection. Think about your image. You're the leader. What is, when you look at your staff, the reflection that you're seeing back at you? And if it's people that are not clear on what they need to be doing, you need to ask, what's my communication saying to these people? If they're not motivated and they're tired, you need to say, what's my energy towards these people, right? And if your customers are not happy and not getting what you really desire them to have, you literally have to ask, what leadership am I providing to my people? What leadership am I providing to my people? All right, so if you want to learn more about the 5 steps of training, the 4 steps of coaching, and the 9 steps of accountability, right? Click the link around this video and let's get you started.